And now for something completely machinima.
Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around and I've discovered.
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the machinima, Luke.
Hello and welcome to And Now for Something Completely Machinima, podcast about machinima, virtual production, and related tech. I'm Phil Rice, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Invisible Ricky Grove. Say hi, Ricky. And Tracy Harwood.
Hello.
And Damien Valentine.
Hello.
So, this week we are covering a machinima pick that is Tracy's. And it's called Optimism Bias. Tracy, why don't you tell us about it?
Absolutely. Great. Okay. This is a film by a guy called Andrew Knight. His company's called Recycled Media, and it's actually released on his YouTube channel in 2015. Now, it's a film that Andrew sent over to us. He's been a long time machinima fan and has been following our channels for quite a few years now. So it's great that he finally sent this over for us to take a look at. I think what prompted him to get in touch was some of our discussions about Peter Rasmussen and Jackie Turner's Stolen Life, having been at its premiere in 2007.
Oh, wow.
And more generally, including the Artery Machinima production review that you guys did last month, which of course featured Hugh and his strange company and the Ill Clan, all of whom Andrew had met in the past. Now, Andrew also worked on the Acme Machinima Film Festival in Melbourne over a good number of years, right since it first started showcasing machinima back in the early 2000s. When he got in touch, he said one of his proudest projects is this mini-series called Optimism Bias, which he had created with his friends and colleagues in a game called Red Faction Guerilla, which premiered as a 20 minutes machinima, originally at the Melbourne International Animation Festival, but then was much later released actually on YouTube as a series. So although it's a 2015 release that we're looking at here as a mini series, originally I think it was released in around 2013 and was actually made over, I think he said, a period of a couple of years before that. So say filmed in around 2011, 2012. It's a little bit hazy on the timings. It's quite a while ago. Now, before I talk to you about my take on the film, I wanted to say that I was lucky enough to catch up with Andrew to talk about the series and also to ask about what he's doing these days. And not least, that's actually because when you take a look at this, it's pretty clear that he's professional, very professional. And indeed, he has got film industry chops as a cameraman, particularly in terms of digital camera work. And currently, he's working with aspiration to become a director in his own right. He's worked on plenty of real life projects like Bridgerton and The Great and a few other virtual production projects where he's particularly working with Unreal Engine, including one we took a look at several months ago called Flight, if you remember that one.
Oh, yeah.
It was directed by the VFX specialist Tim Weber. He worked on the camera on that. Weber, of course, is known for his work on Gravity and Avatar. So currently Andrew is working on a couple of what I'd say and what he would say probably are more ambitious virtual production technique type projects, and both of these are yet to be released. And that's primarily, as I understand it, because he's looking to find a distribution deal for them rather than release them through YouTube. In fact, I think that approach is because he felt they never achieved the impact that they were particularly keen that they should really from Optimism Bias. It never achieved what it should have done. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we've checked out the video. See what you think about that part of the story. And also just to say, we'll of course release that video of Andrew and I discussing that work and where he's got to with his other projects as a separate video, I think. Excuse me. So taking a look at optimum bias, what I really enjoyed in this, and what I really wanted to talk to you guys about is the fact that this is kind of a situation context story, and it's about NPCs in a game where they have a job as NPCs to keep the player characters engaged and playing. And the NPCs are, in fact, professionals that work in different game engines. They're managed by this Halo combined drone-like character called Cheryl. And to help with the training of new NPCs, recruits in this game, Cheryl from HR, as she's known, has introduced this kind of mentorship program. So in this mini-series, you've got the NPCs themselves, you've got Cheryl's influence, you've got a noob NPC who's trying to learn from the pros, you've got a sergeant, grunts and elites, whose job it is basically to get killed in just such a challenging enough way that the character players themselves get some progress achievements, enough that keeps them coming back to the game. Although the players' characters themselves are pretty shit at the game they're playing. And in and amongst that, the story is about these NPCs competing with one another to get promotion to better roles. Now, clearly what you've got here on that sort of brief description is a lot of characters. But what's masterful about it, I think, certainly from my point of view, is the voice acting and the humor. And when I talked to Andrew, I wasn't a bit surprised to learn that this has been partially inspired by Rooster Teeth's Red versus Blue, as long ago as that. But there's certainly enough in this for there to be some quite significant differentiation from Red versus Blue. I'd say with a large helping of what I'd call Australian flair and humour about it. The action's really well edited, although it does have a kind of wooden Halo-esque movement that we're familiar with. It's not obviously Halo, it's Red Faction Guerilla, but it's clearly very similar. So the characters have helmets rather than faces. The sound design, I think, is particularly good. I was absolutely fascinated to hear Andrew talk about how it was actually made. Because the game itself is a first-person shooter. So to get the scenes in high enough quality render, not only did he use an in-camera recording process, sort of a virtual production type process, to generate the footage rather than a screen cap type technique, which is what most folks were doing at the time. But he then cut out a part of the scene from the film without the first person in it in order to get the content to edit it together. And it's a massively labor-intensive approach. He'll talk to you about that in the interview. You can have a listen to what he was doing. He also talked about how they made the film in one location. It was shot entirely in engine using locally networked PCs, very much in the vein of Hue, which was described in that Artery Machinima documentary that we covered last month. I guess before I tell you about some of the distribution challenges, let's hear what you think to it. What was your take on it?
This film, it's called Optimism Bias, but I'm gonna use it for confirmation bias, in that I've long held the theory that everything is funnier with an Australian accent.
Yeah.
Or Kiwi, and they, both of them would not be happy that I lump them together, but there's enough similarity there that it's really funny.
It is.
the writing is very snappy and punchy, and then you're right, the acting, the voice acting is just terrific. So I didn't mind the stiffness, and I typically do, but I didn't mind it. I think because it was pretty clearly what we're seeing is puppeteered, right?
Yes, absolutely.
This is
Yeah.
not it's not keyframed animation like something that Damien or I might do in iClone or something like that, where you can fine tune. This is literally puppeteering, which goes back to the traditions not just of Hugh, but Clan in particular. That was really their big emphasis. Their big area of pioneering things was with puppeteering, live puppeteering. So there's going to be a little bit of jerkiness and stiffness with that, but I feel like that the performances, even given that, they weren't over the top. They were subdued, the movement wise, and they were appropriate. Like it fit. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but for me, it comes back to the writing is
Brilliant.
so. If it's not everything, it's so important. It's the success with which. So part of the challenge with engagement on machinima of this style is also true for Red versus Blue, in that it's going to be a little bit more challenging to engage with and for you to personify a character strongly when the key parts of their face that express their mood are covered, either by a full-on helmet like one of the guys, or one of them has like a gas mask and glasses. I mean, there's no eyeballs, there's no mouth, there's no face wrinkles, there's nothing to help there. So that means it's all in the voice and the puppeteering. I think this is a success in that regard. Like it's really well done. I honestly, even having I watched all the first 5 seasons of Red versus Blue. I've watched one episode of this, the one you submitted for us, and I already feel like these characters are easily as well defined and well characterized as anything that Rooster Teeth ever did.
Yeah.
It's that good. Like, it's really nicely done. So, my favorite scene is when the HR robot, flying robot,
Yeah.
comes in, and the guy who's been, kind of talking shit realizes, oh, hi, I didn't see you there, and changes his whole tone. Just wonderful. The fact that they could pull off, that's a complex emotion there.
But with just a little tilt of the head.
Embarrassment, and then changing tack.
It's brilliant.
That's tough to pull off. And the fact is that we, again, with no facial help on the part of the character, and the robot's just this static thing, so it's all pulled off with voice and some puppeteering to give, I guess, what you would call body language, right? So that's a sign of some experience in writing and in staging a scene that I found it very gratifying. The cut off part of the frame part of things is really surprising and funny to me, mainly because the shots are all so well centered.
Yeah.
And you would think if you're cutting off some uneven portion of the frame, so that means this, I think, is probably the mark of you. You said that he's a camera operator, so
Absolutely, yeah.
that takes some forethought. That means you have to film it wrong. In a way, you have to film it off axis because you know what parts of the frame you're going to lose. I mean, I realize that's not that big a deal. It's not rocket science or anything, but it's nice, because it could have been done without that.
Yeah.
And then if someone criticizes, you can say, well, we had to cut off part of the frame. But no, instead, he maintained an awareness of that before shooting and then shot accordingly. That's very smart, and it's a very pro move, So, yeah, I found a lot to like about this I'm shocked, honestly, at the view count. Is this channel where we're watching it? Is it the first place that it was published?
Yep.
9 years ago?
Well, no, the first place it was shown was in a film festival
Oh, okay, okay.
where it
But
got
online.
not online, no.
Okay.
But the the miniseries was a follow-up from the attempt to distribute, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let's just see what Damien
Yeah,
thinks.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant though.
So obviously, Red versus Blue did spawn lots of imitations, and most of them are pretty terrible. Uh, but we won't dwell on that because this is inspired by Red versus Blue. But I think Andrew took that inspiration and just put so much of himself into making it his own thing. He wasn't trying to have a group of people wearing colored armor in a valley making jokes, just like a lot of those other Red versus Blue imitations did. He made this his own thing. Even
Yeah,
though Red
there's a
versus
clear
Blue was-
difference between imitation and inspiration.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
this shows that difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to watch more of this. I haven't had a chance to look to see what else he's got. But I was very impressed by the way it's written. Phil, you mentioned the sort of stiffness of the characters. To me, that actually made this better because these aren't meant to be human characters in a futuristic world. They are meant to be video game characters. So
Right.
having that stiff animation,
No, it works.
It works.
It's consistent. Yes.
yeah, because you expect them to move like that. So I think that really works for it. And I think a couple of weeks ago I was talking about stylized animation, and that's part of this. The voice acting was excellent. I'm very impressed about the way the camera angles were. I thought that was very impressive, the camera work. I didn't realize
Mhm.
that the technique was just to film everything and then just trim it down to just the corner.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to think, oh, how would I do that if I was doing it? Because
Well, how do
that's
you
a
do
lot of
that
work.
and not completely destroy your resolution too? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an
Right.
interesting technique. Very well done.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like it's just a tiny low res thing. It looks good.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, the other thing I want to mention is there's absolutely nothing wrong with XCOM Terror from the Deep. That's one of my favorite XCOM games.
That whole conversation bit just cracked me up.
Yeah. So many in jokes, isn't there? It's brilliant.
Yes.
When I found a copy of a DOS emulator for my phone, I immediately put XCOM, the original XCOM 1 and XCOM Terror from the Deep on my phone so I could play them on the go. So I have a nitpick about that. Okay, it's flawed. There's some bugs in it, but I still really enjoyed that game. So I wanted to mention that. It's nice though that it got a joke in this, and it brought back a lot of memories of playing that game just from watching this video.
Well, and I think it's worth noting too that it's not the truth of that opinion that was expressed that's important. It's the context and the way it was delivered as a dig and
Yeah.
all of that. Just
Yeah.
I laughed.
yeah.
I did laugh at
There's
that.
in jokes and then there's intelligent in jokes, and this
Yes.
one felt like
Intelligence.
I
there was
completely
real
got the
intelligence
joke.
to the humor. Yeah.
I completely got the joke and understood it because there are flaws to the game. I can see why, that they make the joke. It works
Right.
for those who
Right.
know the game. Yeah, yeah. This is an excellent. I'm glad he sent it to us. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very glad. Let me tell you about the challenge and the disappointment, because I think this is a really interesting part of it, and I wanted to separate it out from the fantastic achievement that he's made, because I think we might come up with some different points here. So basically, he said he was particularly disappointed that it didn't get so much traction online, and I can definitely see why that would be a disappointment.
Mhm.
It was, it's evidently released as a kind of a short series, and that was some time after it had basically been shown as a 20-minute version at the film festival. At the film festival, he had managed to gain some interest among the Nordic games developer folks. They'd shown some interest in it, and it encouraged Andrew and his co-producer to visit Nordic Games, who are based in Austria, with a view to discussing how they, like a little bit like Red versus Blue did with Microsoft and Bungie, get involved with the actual game developer as a view to this becoming the sort of a showcase machinima piece, whereby the game would leverage the audience that they could generate through this. And they went such a long way through the process of discussing that with this games developer, right to the point that, this was a go situation for them, right to the point when the game developer changed the person that they were discussing this with. And the new person that came in to talk to them about it just didn't get what machinima was. That was it. End of story.
That's a real shame.
Isn't it a shame? And how many times have we heard that? I think, machinima is nothing if not the story of disappointment for so many, and this is another story of just total disappointment. I really felt for him when he was telling me about it, because it's a story I've heard you tell, Phil. It's a story that I heard Hugh tell back in the day as well. But I think if there's anything that's kind of good that's come out of it, is the fact that he fully is aware of the issues that IP generates for them from game footage. I mean, it's a story also that's very evident in The Remarkable Life of Ibelin as well, because they also went all the way through making that film, including the machinima components, and did not seek Blizzard's input into that at all. So it was a real high risk endeavor, which ultimately kind of paid off. And here is a story.
But often it does not.
It does not. And this is another example of where that doesn't happen either. So, they ended up going through all of this, and in the end they decided that we'll cut it up and we'll stick it out on YouTube. And my guess is that, they'd lost a bit of interest in pushing it out on that channel, which is why it never really did particularly well. At this point, though, what he's now doing, given this whole sort of disillusionment that they've got around the IP issue, is that rather than using these kind of engines in this particular way, they've pivoted to Unreal Engine, or he's pivoted to Unreal Engine. And the current work that he's doing, which is called the Gedanken Experiments, after Einstein's approach to conceptual experimentation, is basically taking a bit of a different path. Now, it's inspired, I believe, by Red Faction, Guerilla, and all sorts of other types of machinima, but he will not face the same issues because of the way that he's going with it. However, whether we will ever see it on YouTube is entirely another matter, because he's really bitten by the whole YouTube experience, which is such a shame. Because I do think if you can achieve some traction through YouTube, it's kind of worth the effort. How you get it to be really sticky, I've no idea. I think I feel so sorry for him, really, because this to me should have got a lot more attention than it actually has. I guess you've got to be a lot more into the marketing side of things, much like, Sam Crane has been with his GTA 5 Hamlet production, and I suppose the way Benjamin Ray's gone about the Ibelin documentary as well. So yeah, that's the additional bit of it. I'm sure you've got things to say about that from your perspective as well.
Not really. It's the part of this enterprise that makes me sad, But, I've also and maybe he has in his own way too. I've come to a peace about it in terms of, I'm not going to dwell on that anymore. And have come, for me, it that has come through I just love the craft, and I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where what I spend most of my time in the week doing affords me the ability to spend a little bit of time doing this stuff, So, and maybe it's a little greedy to expect anything more than that, right? There's many who can't even do that. So, but yeah, I relate to the story and to the disappointment for sure. Yeah, it's because it's such it was and is such a promising medium, and it's one of those things where the world should be a certain way but isn't.
I bet if you,
we keep bumping our head against that in this medium, But it is.
But he did this before COVID, and I do kind of feel the world's a little bit different with VFX
Yeah.
than it was pre-COVID. And my gut feeling really is if this came out today or was maybe remastered or you're never going to reshape. I mean, this is brilliant as it is, but if this came to the attention of a new type of audience today, it's got to stick, surely. They've got to appreciate what this is.
Yeah, even if the only thing that is brought forward is those performances.
Yeah.
And the writing that underlies them. Take that audio. It's who keeps their audio masters around that long, I don't know. Not everybody does, I guess, but that's if it were me, if I was in his shoes, that's what I would be tempted to do, is now that I've got these new technical tools that free me from the potential bonds of other people's IP, I still believe in my story. So now I'm going to migrate it there. Now it's a big endeavor. There's not any, whether you're talking iClone or Unreal Engine or a combination of both, none of that's going to be as easy as it was to make this. Not that it was easy, but it was easier to actually generate the action, let's say. To do what they show on screen here using keyframed performances and things like that. It's like, whoa. And then mocap, it'd be too expensive for most people. So, but the end result would be something that you could improve the look of, and if you were releasing it through Unreal Engine, then clearly it's a smart marketing move there, is to make sure people know that, because there's a lot of audience that just because it's made with Unreal Engine, they're gonna give it a chance. That's smart to leverage that.
In the title.
You should trumpet it. Absolutely. There's no benefit to doing that with iClone, really, and that's not a dig against iClone. It's just the audience, the potential audience for Unreal Engine stuff right now. There's a real hunger for it. So, but that's an awful lot of work to put in on something that you feel like is rehashing the old instead of moving to the new, and then you don't really know for sure it's going to work. There's no guarantees. So it'd be a tough decision for sure.
Yeah.
I admire, I will mention too, you mentioned the shows that he's involved with. Have you watched The Great?
No. I did look it up.
So good.
It looks amazing.
Good. It's so good. I think it's on Hulu.
Oh.
I think that's the only place where it's streaming.
Right.
That will be on Disney Plus here. All Hulu.
Yeah, it'll be part of that package.
Oh, is it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah. Bridgerton I watched a little bit of, but that's just not my kind of story. But it's a quality production for sure. Like, it's really beautiful.
Near me.
What's that?
They filmed that Bridgerton near me.
Yeah. It's a beautiful. It's a beautiful.
He's probably
the
been
cinematography is just gorgeous. The set design, the costume design, it's gorgeous. It's essentially it's Dawson's Creek. It's a nighttime soap opera for kids, basically. So there's a great audience for that. It's just not my thing. The Great, that's not. That's something else. That's like I don't even know how to pop a genre on that. It's not really a comedy. It's not really just a drama. It's a mix. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's very funny, but there's much more to it than that. It's like got real depth. The lead performances of Catherine and then her king, this young actor that you'll know his face as soon as you see it, but I don't know his name.
Oh,
they're terrific. It's really, really funny, really, really good, and really racy too. So it's not one for kids.
It's not
but
Tom Holland, is it? It's not somebody
no,
like.
no, but same age bracket. But I don't remember. Now you got to see.
Yeah,
it.
I did look it up, but I haven't seen it. So yeah.
I just looked it up. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult.
Of course.
He's just amazing.
About a boy, yeah.
Yeah, he's terrific in it. This
good at
character
everything.
is my favorite that he's ever done. Like he really, it's out of the park. Wonderful. And then Elle Fanning is the female lead, and she's just great, just great. So the supporting cast is wonderful too. So yeah, that's definitely one to watch.
Well, I tell you what, the Andrew to me is such a talented filmmaker. I have in a lot of ways, not just in terms of the writing and the comedy, but in terms of the skill and technique that he's brought to the machinima that we're looking at here. I am really going to look forward to seeing the Duncan experiment, because I have no doubt that's going to be equally as interesting to check out. And there's another project that he's working on as well, which is also not out yet. So I am just really looking forward to see where
be sure
his career
to
takes him.
to alert us when those become available.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see that too.
yeah, and you can hear all that he's got to say about this in the interview that we'll put out alongside this episode.
Yeah, we'll do a special episode for that. Perfect.
Review.
All right. Well, that is our episode for today, and that wraps up the month for us, I believe. So, if you've got any feedback for us or any info that we're missing or any comments at all, just feel free to email us at talk@completelymachinima.com, or you can comment wherever you see this video, or I don't know, do podcast outlets even let you comment? I guess they don't. So drop us an email in that case. So I'm Phil Rice on behalf of my co-hosts, Tracy and Damien and Invisible Ricky. We wish you the best, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.